Next is describing data with Adam, Elizabeth, and Rhea.
So here's a quick review of the differences between categorical variables and quantitative variables. Categorical variables are usually names or labels. Quantitative variables are usually numeric or measurable quantities. Examples for graphical displays of categorical variables include pie charts and bar charts. Examples for graphical displays of quantitative variables include dot plots, stem and leaf plots, box plots, and histograms.
Hey guys, so we're going to talk about categorical data and describing it, and it's really simple. The three things you need to remember in your paragraph are the maximum and the minimum, unusual features, and keeping it in context. When you list your maximum and minimum, you just list the maximum value and the minimum value, and so talk about the range so you see how much data it covers. Talk about unusual features, which are things like outliers and gaps in the data set that are visible, and keeping it in context. So instead of just listing data, you include units and include what it means for the data set and what it shows us. So our first example of describing categorical data is going to be with this pie chart. And you start out with describing your maximum and minimum. So in this example, B students would be the maximum value because the greatest percentage have Bs, which is 42.9%, and the lowest percentage have Ds, which is 7.1%. So putting that in context, that would mean that most of the students are average B students and very few are D students. Then you go on to unusual features and outliers, which since this is a pie chart, it won't have any. And the third point would be context, which you've already kind of mentioned, keep saying what you said about B students and D students, but you'd wrap up your paragraph in context saying, maybe for example, that most of the students are average B and C students, very few are D students, and a very small percentage are A students, which would be the most high scoring students. So now we have the same data in a bar chart, and you'd once again start with your maximum and your minimum. Again, it'd be the B has the greatest proportion with 12 out of the group, and D is the smallest proportion with 2 out of the group. In context again, that would mean that the greatest percentage of the students have Bs and the smallest percentage have Ds. So then you move on, that would be keeping it in context. And then you'd move on to outliers and unusual features, which this data doesn't have any. So then you'd wrap it up, keep it in context, saying most of the students are average B, C students, very few have Ds, and a few have As.
There are 4 steps to describing quantitative data. Size. First is the shape. Second are the outliers. Third is the center. And fourth is the spread. When describing the shape of the distribution, you need to talk about the modes, which can either be unimodal, bimodal, or multimodal. Second, you need to talk about the outliers. And those would be to either side of the distribution, and gaps should be within the distribution. The center should be described if it's symmetric with the mean, and if it's skewed with the median. Fourth is the spread, and if it's symmetric, you should talk about a standard deviation, and if it is skewed, you should talk about the IQ, the interquartile range.
Okay, so in describing data sets, you have to make sure that you describe them in context, and then you have to make sure you describe them together instead of the first one and then the second one. So in an example here, it's a study where one group received a placebo pill, and the second group received a cold relieving medicine. And as you can tell, both data sets are skewed right, but you can tell that the treatment group is more severely skewed right than the placebo group. Neither sets of data have outliers, gaps, or unusual features, so make sure you mention that. And then you can mention the range with the minimum of 3 days, maximum of 8 days with a range of 5, and then a minimum of 2 days and a maximum of 9 days with a range of 7. And then make sure you mention the median, which, as you can tell, the treatment has less days at 4 than the placebo group at 5. And so overall in our study, we can see that the medicine was more effective than the placebo pill.
Oh my gosh, I'm late for stats.
Wait, Liz,
What?
don't forget your socks.
Thank you.